Tell me about, what's it like for you to play poker, and how do you feel?
Well, I mean, for me, like I said, I feel less disabled. I feel more like a regular person when I'm playing. I'm happier, and I'm less cognizant of being in pain, of the phantom pain that I'm in pretty much constantly from the missing limb. And nobody could tell that I have one leg when I'm sitting at the poker table. Again, sitting in itself poses a unique challenge. But again, when I play it, it's just, I feel it less than if I'm doing other stuff. So it's poker's home for me.
Tell me about your life.
I mean, I was born in Flushing. Unfortunately, my parents were not very well off, and I was a ward of the state by the time I was 13. So I came up in the New York City foster care system. From there, in my 20s, I became an online poker pro, and I was sponsored by a website that used to exist called Part-Time Poker, and I used to, play online up to 15 tables at a time, up to 12 to 16 hours a day, and that was my job. I became known for promoting in poker, and I worked as a dealer in a lot of underground clubs in New York, and I kind of went from there. When the U.S. government took online poker away, I started buying storage units, because I had a friend in poker who told me he bought a storage unit, and he was like, I found gold, and I was like, oh, I like gold, and so I went out there and I started buying storage units, and after that, we looked really at the amount of junk that we got, and we just had 10,000 square feet of junk. So we looked at where we did best, and we did best with collectibles, and I ended up inventing the business a little bit after finding I found 1 million baseball cards in a storage unit.
What?
Now, out of the 995,000 of them were total garbage, and only 5,000 cards were any good. So I took the cards around to ask for offers, and people offered me, anywhere from like 3 to like 8,000. I sold them on eBay myself, and they went for over 50,000.
Wow.
So it occurred to me, if people were making offers that bad, that somewhere somebody was taking them. And so I invented the business that same day. That's actually the story of how my business was born. I created a website and slowly worked on it. And eventually we started getting emails from collectors and people looking to sell their collections. People who had inherited from an estate, and et cetera. Wow. That was pretty much my life up until the diagnosis. I was, I'm one of the better known collectible specialists or experts in collectible items in the New Jersey area. And, things were really good with the business. So we had a good time setting it up. It was fun. I got to travel and meet a lot of interesting people, a lot of characters, a lot of wild collections.
What was the wildest? What's some of the rare things?
I'll be honest. Some of the rarer things that we've come across was what they call gearhead stuff, which is the kind of collectibles that are collected by people who are into classic cars and Mopar and stuff like that. Like particular, we had a porcelain sign that sold once for 5 figures that we didn't expect. It said "Don't be an oil hog" on it. And it had a pig driving a fancy car, and it was actually for filters. And it was from apparently, the early 1920s, and it, apparently
so it was like an ad.
It was an ad that was inside of a garage, inside of an auto garage. So that was probably one of the cooler collections that we had done, because it had a lot of advertising stuff. I recently did an archive of scripts that were from the 40s and 50s that we've been selling down for the client, that have gone for into the 6 figures. A lot of Westerns, John Wayne, Clint Eastwood early.
Posters?
Some movie posters, but this was a script archive. It was 600 movie scripts. And my client bought a house, and the contents of the house happened to be comic books from the Golden Age and scripts from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting. I mean, it was cool for him. He bought the house as a foreclosure, and this was the contents of the house. And it turned out that the collections were worth more than the house he bought.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah. And so you're doing your business up until recently.
Well, no, I've been, my diagnosis.
When was the diagnosis?
It was in December of 2017. I was
I see.
diagnosed, and I had the first surgery in December, and I was involved with the business up to June of 2018. The second surgery, which left me like disabled and really unable to participate in the day-to-days, and I tried to still help the business, when I could, but I signed off as an officer, and I left the business to my wife to support my family. I trained her to run it, and that's pretty much the end of my time with the business. Like, I'll still help if they need help. Like, what is this stuff worth, or what stuff that I can just look at. But like, obviously, I was no longer equipped physically to help with the day-to-days of the business, so I had to stop.
I see. Tell me about the diagnosis. What did they tell you? And
Well, I was under the
prepare you?
care of a sports orthopedist, just a regular doctor, and I had seen him, and obviously there was a lump behind my hamstring in the thigh area, and I had asked him if it was anything to worry about. We got an MRI. He said it was benign. Don't worry about it. And I had a work project that I knew would take me 3 to 4 months. We were actually selling 9,000 slot and model cars for a family in Bernardsville, New Jersey. And, so I wanted to know, should I delegate the project or should I work on it personally, which usually gets us better results. But he was like, don't worry, you're totally fine to take the summer. I ended up delaying my diagnosis by about 4 months, and during which time I went from probably early stage 2 to late stage 3, as it went from the size of a grape to a grapefruit. And then at which point the doctor operated on it, which, it was removed improperly by an untrained surgeon, what they call a whoops surgery. And the pathology came back as cancer. And he just kind of dropped it on me and left the room and was just like, we're going to give you a specialist, and you'll see him and he'll explain. And from there I was referred to, a proper orthopedic oncologist. But at that point, the damage had already been done. He'd left residual tumor all over my leg, and again, took the tumor out in pieces, which you're supposed to remove it what's called in block, which means in one piece. Mm-hmm. So he instead chose to go on with the surgery and possibly spread it throughout my system. Although there's nothing's definitive with cancer, and especially not with sarcoma. But the literature suggests it's bad for an untrained surgeon to take it out.
Yeah. I imagine you must have dealt with a lot of anger at that point.
I mean, I was pretty angry. Yeah, I would say I was a really angry guy at that point, because again, I had a chance to catch it early, and the treatment early. The treatment early would be possibly just surgery. Instead, I endured chemotherapy and radiation and targeted drugs and experimental drugs, all kind of as a result of the first surgery. It kind of put us behind the pace on the way they would normally treat someone with my condition. As to whether or not it would have helped definitively, nobody can really say.
Yeah. Tell me about sarcoma. What is it?
Well, what sarcoma is it's a cancer of the muscle, fat, or connective tissue. There's actually over 50 different subtypes of sarcoma. I have what's known as UPS, which is undifferentiated pleomorphic sarcoma, which basically means a sarcoma that doesn't fit the properties of any of the other sarcomas. It's one of the more aggressive subtypes when it gets this designation, and in my case, it was very really aggressive, and mine grows extremely quickly and has periods of hyperprogression. So when I had the second surgery, which was at the John Theurer Cancer Center, which is a dedicated cancer center, Dr. James Wittig did the surgery and gave me a report saying that I was cancer-free and that I have what was called clean margins. So I went on vacation to celebrate, and on the last day of my vacation, my second cancer center, I had signed a consent without my knowledge for them to request my tissue. They found readily mitotic activity on multiple margins and basically said that the doctor was incorrect, and they told me to come right in. And by the time I had come in, it had already recurred, and I had 2 new tumors in my leg, and I had spread to my lungs.
Wow. sounds like there was a lot of back and forth.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth because everything, you do, if you're educated about your condition, you back with a second opinion.
Yeah.
In my case, the second opinion caught the fact that, again, they didn't give me the correct information, which changed the path of my treatment. So, I mean, I've had a couple of really unlucky strokes along the way, unfortunately. And, again, whether or not I would have been stage 4 eventually anyway, nobody really knows. But it's pretty sure that these events didn't help.
Yeah. What happened then? What have you been told? What's your prognosis at this point?
Well, before I had the surgery, I had a scan done to make sure the surgery would be worthwhile due to the recovery time and it's an extreme procedure to have your left hind quarter amputated because, again, it involves your sitting bone, your hip, your pelvis, and your entire leg being removed. It's the most severe level of amputation. So I had to really think onto whether or not the surgery would add quality of life to be worthwhile. So the CAT scan at the time suggested I would have 6 to 12 months left to live. After the surgery, I had another scan done, and unfortunately it showed that I had hyperprogression again, this time in my lungs, and a tumor was now measuring over 5 centimeters and threatening my heart and my lungs, and what's known as the mediastinium, I'm not sure the pronunciation, it's one of those. So, but that's the chamber where your heart and your lungs are, and it's approaching that now. So they reworked their estimate and told me that my life should be measured in weeks.
Wow. What kind of symptoms does that?
Right now, I'm widely asymptomatic, but they're waiting for symptoms to start. Basically, sarcoma patients tend to turn quickly, which is why I had put such an emphasis on getting out here to California and getting to the World Series of Poker very quickly, because if you tell me I have weeks to live and I want to maximize the amount of life I can fit into those weeks. And, at this point, most of my work was done as far as like getting my family set up. Most of that was done. And now this time is for me. And so I figured I'd live my dream of coming out here to California and take one more shot at playing in the World Series of Poker. And, sorry. Hopefully, I can make something happen and I could reach some people and teach them about sarcoma so that, when their doctor tells them it's benign, they opt for a biopsy. Because if I would have known the word sarcoma, I would have had a chance. Because I would have told them, hey, there's cancer that grows in your leg. Like, I would have told my doctor that I wanted a biopsy. I'm sure of that because I read all the information and we all Google. We all have Googleitis when we're sick. So I'm no different than anybody else in that way. And I would have, I like to think, been like, hey, maybe we should look into this. So that's why I just try to get the word sarcoma out there. I traveled the country on my own dime previous to this, wearing my gear, and I talked to everybody at the poker table just once, and I let everybody know what sarcoma is and how you can look for it. And like I tell them, if you have a friend or a family member complaining about a lump in their arms or in their legs, that needs to be thoroughly investigated and not just brushed aside, because while 99% of the time it will be benign, I am the 1%.
Yeah. What does it mean to you to have a choice of when to end your life?
For me, it means freedom. It means the freedom to choose. I'm less afraid of the end now because I know that when I become symptomatic and it's my time, and I can't enjoy life anymore, and I can't do things like play poker or go outside, that I don't have to just wait and just be in pain and on tons of medication I don't want and unconscious. And, I just get to live, I get to die the way I lived, which is in charge. I'm an entrepreneur by nature. And, I've run several successful businesses, and this is how I wanted to run my death. Again, I wanted to be able to choose when it's my time to go, rather than having that choice made for me, or me being kept here when I'm little more than just, really furniture at that point. And my loved ones would have to watch me suffer longer than they would need to. And I don't want that. That's not what I want for anybody. It's not what I want for myself. So this has been a decision that I've been committed to since the day I received the diagnosis. Back in 2017, I told everybody, if this turns and I go stage 4, I want access to medical aid in dying. And then New Jersey passed the law, but with the reduction of my lifespan to just weeks and to be thought of in weeks, I can't be confident that I would have made it to August 1st. And I don't expect the rollout to go smoothly in New Jersey because with new laws, obviously there's a lot of problems getting them rolling. And I didn't want to be a statistic of people who died waiting for New Jersey's death with, dignity, medical aid and dying program to kick in.
Was it difficult to be able to apply? What is it like? How difficult has it been? Not only your physical transition to California, but the process of being able to get the medication here.
Well, the physical transition was grueling.
Tell me about that.
Well, just the air travel alone on somebody in my condition is, there's a risk for blood clots that's higher than normal. I have probably 4 of the 10 major risk factors because I have an amputee, recent major surgery. I don't remember the other ones off the top of my head, but I just, cancer is one. So, I knew that traveling was a risk, but really it was a risk that I had to take. As far as access, I'm still in the process of getting access. I've gotten on the Medi-Cal program because I'm disabled. And from here, I'm working with the social workers and the hospice to make it happen. I have submitted, my first request verbally to a doctor already, and I have to wait now to find out if the doctor will grant my request, or else I'll have to find a physician who will.
I see. And then what happens? What's the next step?
The next step when you find a physician who will is you actually have to find a secondary physician who either is, with hospice or independent of hospice to also confirm the diagnosis and, sign off on prescribing the aid.
You were telling me it's not about dying.
No, it's not about dying. It's about living for me, because knowing that, again, I have my options, it allows me to live a life without fear in the time I have left and to focus on, again, the things that make me happy, like poker and raising awareness for sarcoma. So it's made a big difference in my life. Again, it freed me mentally, from the prison of worrying about how am I going to die? How bad is it going to be? How long am I, going to be in a coma? Am I going to have to stop eating and drinking? It's just the loss of independence for me has been tough, and it's happened in stages, and I don't want to get to the stage of losing independence to where I'm unable again to enjoy the simple things in life. If I can't watch my favorite TV show, well then I want the option at that point to be able to obtain medical aid in dying.
Have you faced resistance or people trying to convince you out of it, or any?
I mean, I've faced some opposition through my social media. Not most people are supportive. A couple people have sent me letters either that were nasty and telling me that suicide is a mortal sin. But I argue that it's not. I don't want to leave. Life is beautiful. I want to live as long as I can. It's the disease that's killing me. It's not me that's taking my life. It's not my choice. Cancer is making that choice. And so what I want to do is I want to steal that choice from cancer, and I want to be back in control for the first time since I was diagnosed, which is why I've gone through such extremes to access medical aid in dying. And to, again, make my dream of living here in California a reality.
You were saying that you were able to basically leave things as you wanted, with your family, and you just settle things with the rest of your loved ones, and now it's your time. What does that mean? How do you communicate to your family?
Well, I still speak with with my wife, who I'm separated with on a daily basis. As again, she runs the business, and I'm still helping her. Get the hang of it, because it's a job built for a workaholic who wants to work 120-hour weeks, because that was that was my life before cancer. Again, I was building something. And I still talk to my son on Skype, and I just bought a PlayStation so that we can play games together a few times a week. Obviously, it's, it's not optimal, but this is what I was forced to do, again, to have my option. And I spent 6 months and lost my leg making sure that the business was where it needed to be and that my wife would be able to take over. And that's why I say now is like my time, because it was my dream to come to California. And unfortunately, I couldn't bring everybody with me because the business is based locally in New Jersey. And to just walk away from it would be to just discard my legacy. So it's a business I hope my son will get one day. He likes collectibles already. And, it's just now is my time. Like, again, now is when I'm going to focus on doing the other things that I couldn't do. Because there's at a point in your life, you go left or you go right. And I went left, and I went the family route and the business route. And I gave up my dreams of, being a poker pro who traveled the country. And now I'm going to get those back. Here at the end, I'll at least have a chance to, to win the big one, which is, it's every poker player's dream. So
Tell me about what you hope to leave behind as your own legacy, perhaps to your son as a poker player.
I mean, really, the legacy I hope to leave behind is the awareness that I can raise for sarcoma. Poker's my vessel. The same way if I was a musician, I would play a show. I'm a gambler, and poker is my way of getting the message out, because if I could win a bracelet, then the coverage would make ESPN, and I could possibly reach millions of people, and then my legacy would change from somebody who worked, a lot and did good in business to somebody who genuinely helped people at the end of their life. And so I would hope that my son would see that, that the dad helped people at the end, after spending a life, chasing money. It's not about the money for me anymore. It really, it's about the bracelet, which is, it's all about the bracelet. And who knows, I'm probably not going to get one, but I'm damn sure going to try. So, and you never know. That's kind of what the World Series is about. Is what's waiting for you victory? Probably not, but it wouldn't be poker if we didn't play the game. So I'm going with the best of hopes, and at the very least, I'm going to talk to people about sarcoma, and I'm going to raise awareness, and that's what means a lot to me.
Out of all the states that would make this possible for you to choose when you can go, why California? What brought you to California?
Well, again, it was on my bucket list to make it to California and to eventually live either in, to live in a West Coast state was on my bucket list. And unfortunately, my bucket came a lot sooner than I anticipated. So, California was chosen for its proximity to Las Vegas, its variety of card rooms and casinos, which would allow me to continue following my interests to the end. And, again, it's a place I wanted to come to, before I was involved in the decision of medical aid in dying. Before I had cancer, I had, get to California on my list. I got tired of the East Coast. After 30-something years in one place, you get tired of it. I'm sure there's people here in California who want to move to New York on their bucket list. I had the opposite.
People who question your decision and people who question what you're fighting for might wonder, why and what is it that he wants to avoid. I hate to take you there, but in terms of what they've told you that it would look like otherwise.
Well, I mean, I'd like to avoid having my lungs fill with fluid or blood and being drained by stints on a daily basis several times a day. I'd like to avoid asphyxiation, slow gasping for air, and I don't really want to be on oxygen tanks and unable to get out of bed and having to wear diapers. And the worst of it really is just having your heart crushed is one of the ways I could go. I could have a collapsed lung. There's so many different ways that the tumors can kill you, and none of them are good. Many of them involve a long period of suffering between, the initial injury to your eventual demise. A lot of it is, again, suffering, and a lot of people suffer needlessly. And because I'm young and I'm strong, they suggest that my period of what they're calling, the terminal phase might be longer than some people's. So for me, I'm trying to avoid the worst of that. I don't want to cough blood up every morning, and I don't want to be bedridden. I don't want to asphyxiate on my own blood. None of these sound like things that I or anyone else would want to participate in. And yet, if I was on the other side of the country, I'd be forced to. And could they put me in a coma? Sure, but I don't want to be in a coma. If I'm going to be in a coma, I'd rather be gone.
Yeah. Do you have a belief or a hope for what's on the other side of life?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not a very religious nor spiritual person. It's not exactly my bag. I believe what's on the other side. None of us know for sure. And nobody can answer that question. So I don't spend a lot of time pondering it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a big believer in science and things that are proven. I also know that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, and that all of us do contain energy. Again, what happens to that after we go, nobody knows, and I'm not going to be the one to provide you with that answer.
Do you feel fulfilled in your life at this point?
I mean, I'm lucky. I've lived a rather full life. I've done a lot. I've been everywhere, and I just know so many people my age who've done less than I have. So I don't feel particularly unfulfilled. I mean, I had a family. I built a business. I made it to California. I'm playing in the World Series again. I've done what I loved. I found the time. So I don't rue and beget life for what it's taken from me. I know I've had more than a lot of people, and so really, it's not enough for me, but it's going to have to be enough for me.
Your courage is so inspiring, and I'm in awe of it. When I saw your videos on YouTube and now talking to you, you have this force of life and energy, and it really fills the room. Almost like someone that's not even afraid. I feel more afraid.
I have work left to do. I'm more afraid for the people I leave behind than I am for myself. Which that's really what I'm afraid. I'm more afraid for the people I leave behind than I am for myself. Again, when I pass, I'm hopeful I'm not going to know it, and the other people who are left behind it's like they say, those who are left behind are those who have to grieve. I have the easy job in all of this, and the hard job is left to those who stay behind. So I truly do believe that, and it's sad I have to leave. I'm sad about it, but I'm not afraid. Again, I don't cling to this life. Not if it can't be if it can't be life, then I don't want it. That's just, it's my opinion. A lot of people probably aren't going to agree with it, but I'm going to be honest with you. This is my life, and it's my decision. And, I've been really clear on my beliefs for a long time in regards to this. So I told you I'm goal-orientated. So for me, the goal is, and this is what I said in my last interview, is to rob cancer of its prize, which is my life.
And do you have any coping mechanisms, meditation, something that, someone going through a similar situation you would recommend?
The only thing I focus on is that I have work to do. I still have work to do. And, I'm not ready to go yet. And I don't have any magic tricks to help people cope. Sometimes I'm better than others. I have good days, I have bad days. For the most part, again, I don't spend my time worrying about when the end is coming, because then how am I going to enjoy the life that I'm in?
That's good advice for all of us.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed to anybody.
Yeah. What have you learned about life that you, I guess, is there anything you didn't think of before or know before that you've learned about life itself?
Money isn't everything. Taking the time to help when you have the opportunity is probably, worth it. That and just build experiences, not bank accounts, because at the end of the day, again, the experiences they're worth more than the money. And that's what I've learned here at the end.
And are there any misconceptions that you'd like to make sure that you clarify about the process that you're going through?
Just that, again, it's a process of courage and not cowardice. That would be first and foremost is, it's a brave decision and not a cowardly one. So that would be the number one misconception. Number two, again, would be that, medical aid in dying is suicide, because, again, people who commit suicide, they don't want to live.
Yeah.
I want to live more than anything. I just don't have any way to do it.